Hi Joyce, hi classmate. Our group will discuss about mental health issues facing refugees in Canada. My part is the introduction. I'm Benedict John Garcia. So who are the refugees? Refugees as defined by the government of Canada, these are people who have fled their countries because of well-founded fear of persecution. They're unable to return home. They have seen or experienced many horrors. Refugees are different from an immigrant. An immigrant is a person who chooses to settle permanently in another country, while refugees are forced to flee. So how does Canadian refugee system works? We have two main parts, the Refugee and Humanitarian Resettlement Program and the In Canada Asylum Program. So the Refugee and Humanitarian Resettlement Program are for people who need protection from outside Canada. These are persons who've been sponsored by the government of Canada or by private group. They are also called resettled refugees. They were fortunate enough to be selected for resettlement here in Canada and they are granted permanent residency or landed status when they arrive here in Canada. While in Canada Asylum Program, these are people making refugee protection claims from within Canada. These are persons who makes their own way out of the country and after reaching Canada by land, sea, or air, they apply for asylum through inland refugee determination system. So the total protected person and refugee in Canada in 2016 is about 58,435. So according to UNHCR, the top five countries are Syria, Eritrea, Iraq, Congo, and Afghanistan. So Syrian refugees that arrived in Canada as of January 29, 2007 is about 40,081. So how many refugees suffer from mental health issues? So according to Dr. Morton Baser, about 10 to 15% adults and 20 to 50% of children suffer from PTSD. So according to analysis or study made by LSIC, refugees had the highest reported incidence of mental health problems than other immigrants. Within the 6 months since they arrived, about 8.2%, and after 2 years since arrival, about 29.8 to 34.7% suffer from mental health issues. So what is mental health? Mental health, according to the World Health Organization, it is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make contribution to her or his community. According to CAMAGE, mental health involves finding a balance in all aspects of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It is also the ability to enjoy life and deal with the challenges you face every day. So what is mental health illness? A mental illness is the reduced ability for a person to function effectively over a prolonged period of time because of significant levels of stress, changes in thinking, mood, or behavior, feeling of isolation, loneliness, and sadness. It's also the feeling of being disconnected from people and activities. This is my part. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nirmal Angurana, and I'm going to discuss different stages of migration, factors and variables affecting mental health of refugees in these stages. Pre-migration stage. Before escaping from the home country, refugees are in the pre-migration stage, involving the decision and preparation to move, accompanied by chaos, violence, sexual abuse, war, anxiety, and torture. Migration. It is the second stage of migration process. Physical relocation of individuals from one place to another place and uncertainty about the present and the future involved in this stage. The primary concern could be food, water, and shelter, and they may face anxiety about the reception and treatment upon arrival to the host country. Post-migration stage, the third stage of migration process, involves the absorption of immigrant within the social and cultural framework of the new society, excitement and relief upon arrival, new challenges that they may face, learning of social culture rules, new roles in the new community, which leads to confusion, bewilderment, fear, anxiety in the refugees. The critical variables in different stages of migration framework could be in migration stage, social, political, and economic factors, separation from family and friends, the act of leaving a familiar environment, life threatening circumstances, experience of violence, and harsh conditions. In migration stage, the factors could be the perilous or safe journey of short or long duration, the act of awaiting a foreign country's decision regarding final relocation, loss of significant other cultural issues. Post-migration stage, the factors could be the reception from the host country, opportunity structure of the host country, the degree of cumulative stress throughout the migration process, the social hierarchies, religious values and beliefs may change, and supporting themselves financially could be the biggest challenge in this stage. The factors related to migration affecting mental health in refugees in different stages for adults could be economic, educational, disruption of social support, trauma, or political involvement. In migration stage, exposure to harsh living conditions or violence, disruption of family and community networks, etc. And in post-migration stage, those factors could be uncertainty about immigration or refugee status, unemployment, loss of social status, difficulties in language learning, acculturation, and adaptation. For children, the factors could be in pre-migration stage are age and developmental stage at migration, disruption of education, separation from extended family and peer networks. In migration stage, separation from caregiver, exposure to violence, exposure to harsh living condition, uncertainty about the future. Post-migration stage, the factors could be stresses related to family's adaptation, acculturation, discrimination, and social exclusion. Study shows that immigrants who experience trauma in their country of origin before immigration are at high risk for post-traumatic stress disorder and major depressive disorder. Here are the references. If you want to explore more about this topic, you can use these references. Thank you.
Hi Joyce and classmates. My name is Preeta. I'm going to talk about the common mental health problems and risk factors affecting Canadian refugees. According to Canadian Medical Association, refugees are at a higher risk for developing a variety of specific mental health disorders than the general population. The common disorders that affect refugees include post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, chronic pain, and somatic syndrome. The occurrence of these disorders are mainly attributed to their exposure to war, violence and torture, forced migration and exile, exposure to social isolation, racism and discrimination, uncertainty of their status in the country of asylum. According to Refugee Health Technical Assistance Center, studies on rates of major depression in settled refugees ranges from 10 to 40%. Rates for PTSD are lower at a range between 5 to 15%. Among children, the rate of PTSD increases to 50 to 90%, with major depression rising to 6 to 40%. As per American Journal of Psychiatry, strong evidence shows that some groups of refugees, for example black population, have an elevated incidence of psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia, which is associated to the exposure to racism and discrimination in the country of asylum. The migration trajectory is divided into three components of pre-migration, migration, and post-migration resettlement. Each phase poses specific risks and exposure in different ways on adults and children. The factors that affect adult mental health during the pre-migration period include the economic, educational, and occupational status in the country of origin, disruption of social supports, roles and networks, traumatic experience, and political involvement. Children, on the other hand, affected by the age and development stage at migration, disruption of education, and separation from extended family and peer networks. During the migration phase, Refugees might experience prolonged uncertainty about their refugee status, as well as situations that expose them to violence. Those seeking asylum, in particular, sometimes spend extended periods in refugee camps with poor resources and endemic violence. These harsh living conditions can lead to a sense of powerlessness, which in turn provoke or aggravate depression and other mental health problems. Children might experience separation from caregivers, poor nutrition, exposure to violence, and uncertainty about their future. Apart from these factors from the migration phase, there are other factors such as unemployment or underemployment, concern about family members left behind, and the possibility of reunification, difficulties in language learning, acculturation and adaptation can cause mental stress in adults as well as in children during the post-migration phase.
Hi class and Joyce, my topic of discussion is challenges or barriers that a Canadian refugee experience which could affect their mental health. Refugees have to face many ups and downs while they struggle to start a new life in Canada, with some unpleasant experience which they brought from their past life and while living in the last country. Example of these challenges and barriers are acculturation stress, a stress which is developed during the settlement. While adjusting to Western culture, refugees have lack of social support, lack of emotional support, and they have language problems, and they feel like kind of culture shock, which affect their mental state a lot. Another factor is economic stress, lack of income, financial insecurities, unemployment, and lack of skills to get a job. Furthermore, lack of money and lack of required education to learn these skills add more stress to their life, and they feel frustrated or helpless. Another factor is discrimination. Refugees face discrimination by dominating language or being a minority. They feel discrimination while getting a job, while getting some facilities. So they so their mental state is affected by discrimination too. Resettlement stress. When a refugee come to Canada, they hope they will get better and peaceful life, but still they are struggling to get the basic life needs, and they have to face many problems after immigration or migration. Living becomes more stressful and person is unable to get desired needs and a life they hoped, and they have to face mental stress and instabilities. Last, I will discuss about reference, which is from Citizenship Canada, mental health and well-being of recent immigrant in Canada, April 5, 2016. Another reference is immigrant mental health, public health issue by George and Thompson. Thank you.
Hello, Joyce and classmates. My name is Pooja Abraham. I am going to discuss about the support services available for the refugees in Canada. Canadian government designed the Resettlement Assistance Program, which give government-assisted refugees immediate and essential support for their most basic needs. They included financial helps, housing, and referral to other programs. Center for Addiction and Mental Health. This center steps up support for refugee mental health. CIMH is working closely with its partner organization to expand local, national, and global efforts on refugee mental health. Their national initiatives are enhancing training for professionals through the Refugee Mental Health Project, improving refugee access to mental health services, helping refugees access higher education. CAMH local initiatives are increasing outpatient treatment capacity, removing language barriers to treatment and services for non-English speakers. Supporting regional needs in Ontario. CAMH's Provincial System Support Program has equipped service providers with new linking cultural resources. The Multicultural Mental Health Resource Center. This center seeks to improve the quality and availability of mental health services for immigrants and refugees, addressing the issues of language, culture, religion, and other aspects of cultural diversity can promote greater equity in mental health care. Services for refugees include health coverage for refugees in Canada. The interim federal health program provides limited temporary coverage of health care costs to protected persons who are not eligible for provincial or territorial health insurance plan and where a claim cannot be made under private health insurance. Red Cross, Access Alliance Multicultural Mental Health and Community Services, Canadian Centre for Torture Victims also provide mental health support for refugees. Community Health Centers. Community health centers across Canada have decades of experience providing care and support to government assisted and privately sponsored refugees as well as diverse refugee claimants. CHSC provides a broad scope of primary health services, programs, and support through interprofessional teams, enabling refugee newcomers to receive the care and social support they require. Center for Interactive Mental Health Solutions. This center offers mental health services for refugees such as free online therapy program for depression based on cognitive behavioral therapy that teaches skills and strategies for managing mood.
My task is to discuss the role and responsibilities of the CHN or the PHN to help refugees, especially those with mental health issues. The ongoing global refugee crisis present unique opportunities and challenges for the nursing profession. The International Council of Nurses, as cited in Squires 2015, highlights and reminds nurses of their essential role in caring for immigrant and refugee populations. With regards to the refugees, addressing their immediate physical health needs and social care needs like housing and food are the immediate priorities. Once they have settled and started to integrate into the society, the mental trauma from their experiences in their home country often begins to emerge. This is according to Squires. Each stage requires different nursing skills and levels of collaboration with other nursing professions to ensure that the physical, social, and mental health needs of refugees are met. One of the most important roles of CHNs is conducting mental health assessment. According to Garakasha 2014, mental health assessment for refugees in the first few weeks after arrival often does not yield any positive results. In addition, it helps to let them settle first, form relationships, gain their trust, then do a mental health assessment when support systems are in place such as a school, church, friends, and the community. Linking them into health groups and mainstream health services help them to interact with others and form relationships. According to Gardiner and Walker, cited in Garakasha 2014, for a more accurate assessment, it is suggested to involve the family, mostly because family experience has shown to have an impact on their children's mental health. CHLs also play an important role in collaborating and making referrals to mental health specialists and services that are available in the community. This can be a daunting task since follow-up and referrals alone are time-consuming and require effort to look for specialists and services that cater to the refugees' individual needs. For example, most female patients, especially the Muslim population, might be more comfortable with female specialists like female psychologists or female psychiatrists. Language barrier is also an important consideration. Some refugees would require not just translator but specialists who speaks their own language.
Hi, this is April Nodores, and I'm here to discuss the conclusion of the topic mental health issues facing refugees in Canada. Refugees, as defined by the Government of Canada, are people who have fled their countries because of a well founded fear of persecution, not able to return home, have experienced or seen many horrors, and refugees different from an immigrant because an immigrant is a person who chooses to settle permanently in another country, while refugees are forced to flee. There are two main parts of the Canadian refugee system, and these are the Refugee and the Humanitarian Resettlement Program and the In Canada Asylum Program. And the three stages of migration are pre-migration, in transit, or the migration, and the post-migration. The top 5 countries of origin in 2016 are Syria, Eritrea, Iraq, Congo, and Afghanistan. And as with refugees, mental health is of much concern, as mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. And if any of these characteristics will not be met, mental illness is a result, which is the reduced ability for a person to function effectively over a prolonged period of time and can be experienced of people of all ages, all cultures, from all educational levels, and from all income levels. The common disorders that affect refugees are post-traumatic stress disorder, or the PTSD, depression, chronic pain, and somatic syndrome, which in adults, major depression accounts from between 10 to 40%, and PTSD between the range of 5 to 15%. While in children, PTSD is way so high, which accounts 50 to 90%, and major depression is 6 to 40%. Acculturation stress, economic disadvantages, discrimination, resettlement stress are some of the challenges and barriers that they are facing. There are several government and private agencies that are available to provide mental health support to refugees. As a community or public health nurse, it is our role and responsibility to address their immediate physical health needs and social care needs like housing and food, and conducting mental health assessment. And according to Gardiner and Walker, cited in Garakasha 2014, for a more accurate assessment, it is suggested to involve the family, mostly because family experience has shown to have an impact on their children's mental health, and also by collaborating and making referrals to mental health specialists and services that are available in the community. And as we all know that refugees have greater health needs than most of the immigrant arrivals, Canada's mental health response should focus on wellness, paying special attention to the social determinants of health, which build on the resilience of refugee crew, and several factors that increase mental health problems such as internment, unclear resident status, poor housing, multiple moves, poor access to jobs and education, and poor social support should be addressed. And there are several factors that greatly affect in promoting mental health of refugees, and these are how the way groups are welcomed to a country, where they live, whether they can work, if they are considered residents, or if their access to education, training, and initiatives fostering social inclusions, such as language classes and resettlement services, are available and well given. And according to United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, they raised a concern about the use of immigration detention, particularly of children, because this is one of the factors that causes mental illness And according to the study of the Canadian Task Force on Mental Health Issues Affecting Immigrants and Refugees, 1998, as mentioned here in in Mental Health Commissions of Canada, they introduced these 3 principles after the refugees come inside the country. And these are: first, to meet the mental health needs of Canada's migrants, risk-inducing factors must be mitigated and remedial services made universally accessible. The second one is the steps required to prevent and treat emotional distress in immigrants and refugees involve the persons with whom migrants come into contact as much as they do the migrants themselves, sensitizing Canadians, immigration officers, settlement workers, teachers, neighbors, health and mental health personnel, and to the ways in which culture can affect encounters between themselves and newcomers helps eliminate major sources of distress for migrants and facilitates effective mental health care. And the third one is there is no single governmental body or level of government is or can be responsible for the mental health of Canada's immigrants and refugees. For newcomers to adapt to and integrate with Canadian society, their strengths, needs, and perspectives must be taken into account by decision-making bodies at each level of government, by planners and service providers. All the government and private agencies who are into this program are providing the best treatment that are available to provide mental health to the refugees, as evidenced by a variety of psychotherapy treatments that are effective. And examples of these are the narrative exposure therapy, or the NET, the cognitive behavioral therapy, separate in combination with medication, and eye movement desensitization and preprocessing exposure therapy, or the EMDR. And there is also strong evidence that shows successful interventions for treating mental health problems in refugees use a multidisciplinary approach and are culturally sensitive or adapted for specific groups, use trained paraprofessionals, and are linguistically appropriate. And also, as we all know, that mental health systems in Canada are underfunded, and increased volume of patients, the alignment of services to create new care pathways, and training and specialization of some clinicians will require specific resources. And according to Mental Health Commissions of Canada, what we really need to achieve the best possible, or to give the best possible care to the refugees, is the political and institutional strategy for developing a system that will link and support clinicians, nurses, and social workers who offer treatment, and as well as the settlement workers and communities who will provide a social support and sense of belonging to incoming refugees. And based on my personal experience, moving from one country to another was a great stress. How much more do these people who experience terrible things in their country and then coming here? Although we've heard from the news of how the government of Canada and these private sectors are welcoming them, but then I think these are not enough. I think we all need the community effort, like all the people in Canada will give its warmest welcome, because I think once they get into the community, what will really help them is that feeling that the people in their community accepts them of who they are, where they come from. Like they will feel that they fit into the community, although they are new, but then welcomed.